welcome to Finding Your Way with Lori and Tonya. I'm Lori.
I'm Tonya.
So today we're going to talk about communication. So we all communicate. This is something we all have in common no matter. And so what we want to talk about is how do we bring more intention to how we both share communication, give communication, and receive it.
And both of those are equally as important.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we get excited or anxious when it's a tough conversation, or when it's a fun conversation, or when it's a dramatic conversation. And I think that sometimes we don't stop for a second to decide how we best should communicate that so the other person receives it well. And then there's another part of this about receiving the communication. How do we receive communication without always getting our feathers ruffled or our feelings hurt or accepting something that might not be true?
Yeah, so the three things to put anything through is it true, is it kind, is it necessary? And so if we really start thinking about that and putting that into practice and that using that as a filter as we're communicating things, maybe you don't talk as much as you normally would.
And
maybe,
it's okay.
And maybe, there's things that you think that you don't say out loud because it's not true, kind, or necessary.
And the necessary piece, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say, if it's not true, you don't say it, or if it's the truth, I'm going to speak it. Is it necessary?
Yeah.
It may be the truth, but is it necessary? And if it's necessary and not kind, there's sometimes those conversations have to be had, right? But great filter. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And if it's not necessary, it's okay to keep it to yourself whether it's true or not.
We have this conversation in my household all the time. You could have really kept that to yourself, dear husband. But it's true. He'll say it, but it is true. It's like, yeah, but some truths don't need to be spoken. So if we start looking at that filter, we also start looking at being intentional as we speak, as we write, as even our body language and what it's saying to others. We try to set intention around everything we do, and communication is a big one. And so, before we're going into a group where we're going to have conversations, like set an intention of how you want to make people feel, how you want to feel when you leave the conversation also.
And the same thing with a text message or an email.
Yeah.
A lot of times, and I've gotten a lot better at it, but I will kind of set an intention before I hit send. And my intention is how I want the other person to feel about this communication, right? I want them to feel like I have given them a compliment, or I want them to feel like I've done what I needed to do, and now I'm asking them to do what they need to do. So I think that I want them to feel like the communication's fair. So whatever it is you're trying to get across, make sure before you hit the send button, and especially text messages, written communication especially can be interpreted by the other person very different and misinterpreted more often than not, because you cannot tell tone in an email and a text message. So setting some intention before you hit send could be the difference between somebody being upset and not, and receiving your information in a positive or negative light.
And learn from us. I had a recent example, and I'm very intentional about most of the things that I do, or I try to be. And just recently, I, was in trying to do 5 things at one time, and I sent an email to someone, and when I received their email back, I could feel it. Like I could feel I had hurt their feelings, it was not good. Like I had made them feel a certain way. And so I stopped at that moment and went back and looked, what in the world did I write? I must have said something, because I can feel from her message back to me that she's feeling a certain way. And I went back and looked, and I, called her up and said, hey, I am so sorry. That was not my intention at all. I was trying to do too many things at one time. I sent that to you. I can see how you received it that way, but just know that wasn't my intention, and do you accept my apology? Done. And cleared up.
Yes.
But, how many times in the past have I done the same thing and not even acknowledged it or even recognized it? So I think as we grow, it's not that we're perfect in doing this, but we do want to make other people feel or help them feel good energy from us. And I think communication is one of the biggies for that.
Well, and I think too on the receiving end of that, I've recently gotten a text message from someone that I text often, and I read the message, and it was immediately like, ugh, I can't believe. And then I had to stop for a second and said, okay, the story I just created around receiving that information was my story. It probably has nothing to do with how they intended to send that to me, but the message I received in my mind was very different than their intention. So I looked at it for a second and I thought, okay, is this a their issue or a me issue? And it was definitely a me issue. And I reread the text, and then I responded as I thought they meant it. Once I took a minute and got my emotion out of it. And the response was, oh yeah, that's right. And I thought, oh my gosh, I almost created a whole story and got my feathers ruffled around nothing. So sometimes you got to stop when you receive communication and put the receiving of that in the right spot too, and make sure that you're not creating a story around what you're receiving.
Yeah, and so I mean, it has to do with a lot of things. Tone, like your tone of how you can say the same thing in two different ways, and it's received differently. Your body language. So if your body language is not in alignment with what your words are saying, what are people going to believe? They're going to believe your body language. I mean, it's just human nature to do that. And so, like if you're sitting with your arms crossed, but you're saying something nice, it's sort of contradictory, and people are like, I don't believe her. I don't believe what she's saying. So it's not just, what you like, the content of what you're saying. It's not the content of what you're writing. It's what's your intention behind it. It is how that other person, the filter they're receiving it through. It is also the little nuances of your tone and your body language and your eye contact and all of that.
And so I think that as we communicate daily, I mean, you think about, this is the key. This is the number one thing that we do. And there are going to be conversations that are going to be tough conversations that you have to have. And I think that if you just set the intention for, I know I've got to have it. Here's how I want this other person to feel. Here's what I want them to hear. Here's what I mean by that. And then being clear and concise about your communication, I think is another part. A lot of times we over communicate.
Yeah.
I'm bad. Me too. Listen, and way over communicate. I say things that could have been said in 2 words, and it takes me 22 words. And a lot gets misconstrued when you add way too much communication in there. So I think that really just being aware of the filter first, and then if it's a conversation that has to be had that is going to be a tough one, setting that intention, doing it with the least amount of words possible, but the feeling that you want the other person to have, and giving them the opportunity to filter it in, and it being okay however they perceive it and feel it. And again, being able to apologize when you realize that you have put somebody in a position to receive something that you said and it wasn't the right way.
Yeah, I think that's good. So, and then it's on the receiving end. And so we have all been in situations, I know everybody's got an example of this, where someone said something or communicated in a way that it was hurtful, that it was, hurt your feelings, it made you mad, it whatever, however it made you feel. And so it's also flipping the script a little bit to put that through the filter of, was what they're saying to me true, kind, and necessary? And if it's not, it can change how you respond to that communication if you're always putting it through that filter.
And we talked about a conversation that we've had recently, that it came in, and the information, the conversation that the other person was putting out was not true. Right? So
nor kind.
Nor necessary. And instead of before, especially me, I mean, before I would have internalized that. I would have overanalyzed, because I overthink everything. I'm a true Gemini. So I'd have thought about it, and it would have weighed on me. But instead, you put your shield up, and you can say to yourself, literally, sometimes I put my hands up and I can say in my mind, I don't accept that. That's not true. I know it's not true. It may be your reality, it may be what you think is true, but I know it's not me or my reality, it's not true. And so literally, sometimes it just takes putting your hands up. People don't have to know what you're doing. Put your hands up. Don't accept things that are not true. Do not let them in. Do not let them penetrate your armor. Do not overthink them. Don't think about them. Don't give them a second thought. It's not worth your energy and your time. So putting your shield up and not accepting things that are not true is okay.
And I'm learning this, so I haven't mastered it yet.
Me either. No, don't
because
get me wrong.
when you're an open person, when you're a sensitive person, you're responding to people's feedback. You're believing. You want to believe people are good and have your good intentions at heart. And so when you are like that and you have good intentions for things you do and you don't have any malintent, when others come at you with that and you're open and you're sensitive, it's hurtful, and it's I've got a pattern of taking it to heart, like deep taking it to heart. Oh my gosh, well, I need to do something differently. And I'm learning as I grow that that's not necessarily true, because of the stories we tell ourselves when something happens. Each one of us, whether it's the person communicating to you or you filtering what they're saying, we're only coming from our awareness and our past and our stories we're telling ourselves. So if somebody's coming at you with something that's not true, kind, or necessary, you do not have to receive that. And so I'm learning to do that better.
Being aware.
And what peace it brings you, because in the past, like you said, overanalyzing, gosh, I'd be going over and over in my head, well, gosh, did I really do that? And do I need to change something? And it can drive you crazy a little bit.
And so when you start becoming aware and being able to filter it yourself and knowing, you know what, that's just not true. Yeah. And being able to put your hands up, push it away, and move on about your day.
That's right.
Makes all the difference. So listen, we hope that you guys got something out of this. We hope that you will take away with the filter, right? Necessary.
True, kind, or necessary.
Yeah. So take away the filter, apply it to what you're receiving and giving with communication.
Be intentional.
Being very intentional. I think that's key. Be intentional about what you're putting out.
So and then don't receive if it's not true.
Remember your shield, and it's okay
to
receive it. Physically put that shield up. Nobody has to know what you're doing, but it's your superpower. So use it. Listen, if you like this, please share. Like us on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. We'd love to get this information out to as many people as possible. Hopefully it doesn't take folks as many years as it took us to learn some of this. That's why we're doing it. Also, we have a great Facebook group we'd love for you to be a part of. It's called the Positive Vibe Tribe. We've got several thousand members. People are sharing constantly every day. It produces great news feeds of positivity and just food for thought and great nuggets that you can take away and can help change the trajectory of your day. So like us on Facebook, the Positive Vibe Tribe. Subscribe here, and hopefully share this with people you know that can use it.
That's right.
All right, thanks.